I knew it was time to walk away the moment Victor Hale leaned into the microphone during the board presentation and called me loyal to a fault, like I was the family dog who'd finally learned a new trick. The quarterly growth deck still glowed on the screen behind me, 4.8 million in new pipeline under my team's watch. 5 straight quarters with client retention above 92%. Numbers that should have earned applause. Maybe even a nod of genuine respect. Instead, he clapped slowly, smug grin spreading across his face, as if I'd just fetched his coffee. The room chuckled politely. I didn't. My hand stayed steady on the laser pointer. Fingers still tingling from signing 2 major renewals earlier that morning with methodologies I'd built from scratch. Not the outdated scripts the tech sales team kept shoving like scripture. They never saw me as a threat. Not Victor. Not the board members scrolling their phones during my slides. Not the junior directors who stole my frameworks, slapped on worse fonts, and presented them as their own. To them, I was reliable structure. The safe pair of hands who'd carried Apex Dynamics through the Vanguard Solutions merger 3 years earlier. Through 2 rounds of layoffs. Through Victor's endless family experiments. I'd trained 4 assistants. Covered for 5 leadership shakeups. And once closed a $2 million deal from a hospital waiting room Wi-Fi because a key stakeholder's father had just passed. Victor's quarterly targets waited for no one. But here's what they missed. I was never truly safe. I was steady. And steady isn't the same as owned. Steady means documenting every process, training successors thoroughly, slipping protective clauses into contracts while everyone else was distracted, and quietly constructing exits no one noticed. Steady means smiling when Victor called the leadership team family right after slashing my discretionary budget to fund his daughter's wellness retreat in Aspen, complete with private yoga instructors and 0 measurable deliverables. I stopped feeling flattered the day they assigned me to share and intern with marketing, a kid who once misspelled segmentation with AZ and asked if key accounts meant literal keys to the building. The pivot point arrived quietly one evening a month later. I'd just canceled our team's annual strategy offsite due to another round of budget realignment. My phone lit up at 6:15 as I sat alone reworking a churn analysis Victor had promised to review later. The message came from a former colleague, now partner at a rapidly growing West Coast firm. They weren't hunting for another account director. They wanted a founding partner, someone to build from the ground level with real equity, autonomy, and decision-making power. No more propping up someone else's vision. I didn't jump at it emotionally. Instead, I started printing everything. Client agreements I'd authored, redlined merger documents from the Vanguard deal, onboarding playbooks, proprietary segmentation frameworks. Paragraph 7 in the Asset Protection Addendum, God bless it, had been my quiet insurance. I'd inserted it during the chaotic post-merger integration while the original counsel was distracted with personal matters. No one had questioned the language then. Back then I'd told myself it was future-proofing. Maybe part of me already knew Victor's version of family came with invisible handcuffs. Under the surface, everything shifted. Every meeting, every email, every shared drive update became logged leverage. They hadn't just underestimated me. They'd assumed my loyalty meant permanent ownership. That was their first fatal error. The reshuffle hit like a cold slap. An all-hands invite titled Evolution and Excellence appeared without warning. Victor opened by thanking legacy contributors, including my entire division, framing us like outdated equipment ready for phased retirement. Then he unveiled the new direction led by fresh voices, translation, his nephew Tyler, a 28-year-old LinkedIn influencer fresh from a sales tech bootcamp whose biggest credential was viral posts about disruptive synergy stacks. Tyler showed up the next morning in designer sneakers, iced matcha in hand, announcing he'd need me to loop him in on all workflows, with the chirpy confidence of someone who'd never closed a deal in his life. They reassigned nearly 60% of my key accounts to Tyler's new innovation unit. Clients I'd nurtured from initial onboarding to multi-million renewals suddenly became test subjects for his unproven automation protocols that read like crypto hype. He botched the first kickoff with Pinnacle Health, mispronounced the CEO's name, recycled a rejected pitch from 2 years prior, and left the Zoom room unlocked so a random intern wandered in mid-call asking about oat milk preferences. Afterward, Pinnacle's VP texted me directly, "You leaving too? If so, we're ready to talk." I stared at those words until my coffee went cold. That wasn't curiosity. It was a quiet promise. Clients only ask that when they've already decided. That night, I retrieved the hidden folder from my bottom drawer labeled Exit Protocol. Inside were audited copies of every critical agreement, metadata trails on my proprietary logic, workflows hosted under my personal LLC via a buried subcontractor clause from the Vanguard integration nobody had revisited. They'd called me steady. I was already halfway gone. The next morning, I walked into HR with a simple resignation letter, standard 30-day notice. No drama. I handed it to the one rep who stayed out of politics and asked only for confirmation of receipt. My heels echoed down the corridor like final punctuation. I owed no one a scene. I didn't tell my team yet. Panic would only complicate clean handoffs. I finished the day normally. Attended meetings. Sent follow-ups. Even nodded politely at Tyler in the hallway while he pitched ideas to an empty conference room. That night, I drafted personal notes to my clients, calm, respectful, seed planting without burning bridges. I knew exactly when I'd send them. This wasn't revenge. It was precision logistics. I was walking out clean, not bitter. And I knew precisely what would unfold when they tried claiming what had never truly belonged to them. The confrontation started with a knock at my door, not from HR, but from CFO Marcus Lang. Always impeccably dressed, yet perpetually distracted by spreadsheets. He stood in the doorway like a man delivering bad news to a debtor. "Just so we're crystal clear. Sophia," he said, tapping my desk edge rhythmically, "your client relationships and any methodologies developed under Apex branding are company property. Legal will follow up shortly." I blinked once. No smile. No protest. Just steady eye contact until he shifted uncomfortably. He expected tears or arguments. Instead, silence hung thick enough to make the fluorescent lights buzz. He left muttering about protocols. By noon, Victor had scheduled an emergency continuity planning session. Classic move, boardroom invite skipping me. Glass-walled conference room 3B with no blinds. I watched it all from across the hall over tea. New General Counsel Elena Vargas leaned forward aggressively while Victor gestured wildly. "She's defecting to a competitor. Lock her systems. Pull every dashboard now." 10 minutes later, my access vanished. CRM. Email. Shared drives. Slack. Even the office scanner rejected my badge. Then Vargas arrived with 2 IT specialists. "Asset recovery protocol," she announced flatly. "Please step aside." I didn't move. From my drawer, I retrieved the leather-bound merger folder, flipped to the gold-clipped tab, and tapped page 14. "You should review section 7.2 of the Asset Protection Clause." Voice level. Vargas glanced dismissively, gave the half-smile reserved for women presumed to be bluffing, then nodded toward my desktop. That was the exact instant they could have paused, asked questions, de-escalated. Instead, arrogance propelled them forward. Vargas overrode the login herself, muttering about data exfiltration risks. The screen flashed red. Legal hold triggered. Subsection 7.2 protective flag engaged. Encrypted. Access restricted. She froze. The IT lead shrugged helplessly. "It's live. Can't mirror the folders." Vargas's eyes darted to me. Still, I said nothing. When you've planted the safeguards yourself, you don't need warnings. You watched them stumble. They assumed glitch, some merger artifact. Vargas kept trying brute force, while the contractor glanced my way, as if seeking permission to explain. I offered none. Let them dig. 20 minutes to locate the clause. 40 to read it fully. Over an hour before someone returned holding the page against the glass. Finger jabbing paragraph 7.2. In cases of attempted seizure during competitive departure, proprietary client-linked assets revert to the originating strategist, voiding exclusivity, access, and transfer rights held by the parent entity. The realization hit them. The clause predated Vargas's hire. Inserted during Vanguard integration when Apex desperately needed client continuity guarantees and no one scrutinized appendices. Victor had rubber-stamped after drinks with the old CFO. Now in 3B, he slumped, rubbing his temples while Vargas attempted spin. The IT contractor pulled time-stamped audit trails, my original language, my signature chain, Victor's initials for weeks post-merger. That's not enforceable, Victor snapped. Vargas hesitated, jaw tight. The way it's drafted, proceeding would constitute breach. The workflows nest under her LLC subcontractor framework from Vanguard. She never fully assigned them. The room stilled. Victor's mouth opened silently. They'd built dashboards, investor decks, entire retention systems atop my foundation. Forgetting ownership never transferred. Arrogance blinded them. Paperwork doesn't. Vargas returned next morning clutching a folder like it burned her hands. No confidence left. Review complete. You hold rights to the segmentation algorithms and prospecting frameworks. Compliance protocols, too. She trailed off, choking on the admission. The tiering logic I'd spent years refining, proprietary, LLC filed, metadata linked, traced back inescapably. You knew exactly what you were doing, she finally said. I met her gaze evenly. Yes. By lunch, Victor appeared in my doorway. Ty Askew, waving a waiver form like salvation. Let's keep this professional. Sophia, sign this. Waive the clause. We'll call it an oversight. Reputation stays clean. I took the paper, tore it deliberately in half. Pieces fluttering between us. Per section 7. I'm under no obligation. He stared as if seeing me for the first time, perhaps realizing leverage works when the holder refuses to flinch. The first client termination landed in legal's inbox an hour later. Pinnacle Health citing breach from attempted asset seizure, invoking their contract terms. Future dealings routed to my new partner firm. More followed quietly, soft. Inevitable transitions earned through years of trust. I didn't gloat. I sat locked out, yet watching the elegant unraveling of their illusion of control. You can't force ownership on foundations never truly yours. By Thursday, the panic escaped glass walls, spilling into hallways, inboxes, whispered clusters around screens. I was already working remotely from a quiet co-working space downtown. But chaos has its own frequency. I heard it in the flood of unread messages stacking up. It began when Marcus forwarded a revenue threat assessment to the board. Subject line, immediate exposure. 60+% of active pipeline tied to my independent methodology framework, a term legal invented to avoid naming my system. Every client segmented, nurtured, retained through logic I owned couldn't be touched without triggering the clause. The board demanded answers. An investor called for emergency valuation. The number dropped 34% overnight, not projection.
Actual.
Vargas tried spinning ambiguity, claiming symbolic intent. The IT contractor uploaded my full audit archive, timestamped, signed, reviewed workflows labeled with my LLC references. Vargas's voice cracked explaining it. Security was summoned. Victor snapped into full meltdown, freezing communications, auditing exports, disabling external access. Too late. My queued final email had already sent 3 minutes post-HR clearance. Calm lines stating client data remained theirs. No exports taken. Just clean transition. While Victor shouted on board calls and Vargas wore carpet thin, I sipped cappuccino served by strangers who didn't know my name. Inboxes lit with transfer inquiries, inevitable because trust follows competence, not contracts. Clarity isn't loud. Sometimes it's what's left when noise self-destructs. I hadn't stolen anything. They'd simply never read what they signed away. From afar, Apex felt like a machine finally dying, not grinding halt, but profound quiet after. Victor's glass and bravado kingdom flickered. The silence where loyalty once lived proved louder than any revenue loss. Marcus distanced first, leaking a misalignment memo blaming legal. Compliance, lead resigned days later. Client success had took leave. Sales VP scrubbed Apex from LinkedIn. Rot spread inward. The board convened closed-door emergency session. Victor didn't lead. Outside counsel delivered the verdict bluntly. Clause valid. Trails sound. Seizure attempt confirmed breach. Carter equivalent Vargas resigned within 24 hours. No farewell. Just immediate exit. Victor reached out desperately, calls, emails, texts escalating to maybe we overstepped. I never replied. Nothing remained to say. By then I'd stepped through glass doors of my new venture. Reynolds Strategy Partners, founding partner on the letterhead. No family hires. No theater. No pretending loyalty when convenient. Clean desks. Intentional structure. Team who asked before forwarding anything. Same logic rebuilt transparently. Owned outright. Old contacts pinged occasionally, clients, vendors, even former colleagues asking for coffee. Some days I accepted. Most I was busy building something lasting. 2 weeks later the first major cracks appeared. Pinnacle Health, TechForge, and Calder Dynamics transferred fully, no arbitration. Just polite notices and signed handoffs. Contracts concluded naturally because success tied to method, not company name. The method followed me. Victor spun it as inevitable transition attrition to the board. But damage was too targeted. Internal audit threads pulled the merger docs. Victor had never read full Vanguard appendices, not during acquisition, not when stabilizing fallout, not when I proposed subcontractor amendments he once mocked over bagels. The report landed like a hammer, clause highlighted. Untouched PDF last opened by Victor years ago. Board needed no villain, just exit strategy. They labeled it strategic mismanagement, quietly shifting Victor to advisory role, no announcement. Just disappearance wrapped in HR euphemism. The final catalyst came from junior analyst who rediscovered the clause during routine review, printed it highlighted, and left it on the board chair's desk with note. We should have read this. Next morning, final investor memo issued. Governance review required. A clause remains mere words until read. I didn't celebrate with champagne or monologues. Just quiet moment alone watching migration dashboard reach 100%. Board could blame Victor. Victor could blame legal. Legal could blame buried PDFs. None mattered. I twisted no arms. Raised no voice. Took nothing unowed. I simply enforced terms they'd signed yet never examined. My new office breathes clarity. Matte desk. Silent chair. Single unbranded mug. City hums beyond windows without urgency. Inside. Stillness settles when nothing pursues you anymore. Inbox pings. Former colleagues scan note. Still can't figure how you pulled it off. And signed. Like last breath of a proud company refusing self-reflection. I reply simply. I didn't pull anything. I just let them push. Send. It's not victory lap. Outcome seems magic only to those who missed preparation. Signs. Structure. Easier to call it sorcery than admit oversight. Dashboard shows 7 clients now, fresh multi-year agreements. Legally sound, ethically clean. Built with client-owned data redundancies. No dependencies. No disguised handcuffs. True partnerships on mutual terms. SmartLock buzzes, junior partners arriving. They'll handle execution while I review decks. Nothing flashy. Work speaks louder than promises. Somewhere across the city, I imagine Victor pacing an office, no longer his. Surrounded by broken assurances and scorched connections. Still asking wrong questions. Doesn't matter now. I lean back. Close dashboard. Let silence return. Final reflection as sunlight edges my desk. You cannot seize what you never truly owned. The days following brought unexpected peace, mixed with lingering echoes. Former teammates reached out sporadically, some seeking advice, others simply processing the shockwaves. One admitted in a late-night message that Victor's family rhetoric had always felt conditional, loyalty demanded one way. I didn't reply with vindication, just acknowledged the observation. Some truths reveal themselves only after the structure collapses. My new firm grew organically. No aggressive poaching. No drama. Clients arrived because relationships built over years proved stronger than any corporate claim. We implemented the same segmentation and retention frameworks, but cleaner, transparent licensing, client-controlled data vaults, no hidden dependencies. Success felt earned, not extracted. Victor eventually faded from industry chatter. Last rumor placed him consulting part-time for smaller outfits, perhaps finally reading documents more carefully. The board restructured quietly, installing new leadership focused on governance audits. Apex survived diminished. Valuations stabilized lower. But the cultural scar remained, a cautionary tale whispered in executive circles about underestimating steady hands. Occasionally, I catch myself in quiet moments wondering about the moral mathematics of it all. Was it justice or simply consequence? Preparation versus negligence. Loyalty freely given versus loyalty presumed owned. The clause wasn't vengeance weaponized, it was safeguard activated by their own actions. Yet watching an empire built on oversight crumble raises questions that linger. How often do we sign away control without reading fine print? How many steady professionals hide exits because recognition never came? In my office, the snake plant thrives unnamed. Team collaborates without ego. Work flows steadily, not for applause, not revenge, but because built right the first time, it lasts. And in that lasting, the real victory rests, not in collapse witnessed, but in creation sustained. You cannot seize what was never yours, but you can build what belongs to you. The difference, ultimately, is everything.